Immigration. Immigration is a hot topic in politics and also in pubs among the, quote, professionals. This phenomenon has always existed throughout history, during colonialism and under different political regimes. This controversial topic frequently leads to conflicts and quarrels. Dear listeners, welcome to our next episode, and let's dig into this timeless topic.
Sloboda je kľúčom k nezávislosti. No čo sloboda znamená pre teba? Štvorka ťa nebude obmedzovať. Sloboda pre mladých nie je len paušál. Sú to otvorené dvere do nového slobodného života. Tak daj záväzky bokom a prejdi do štvorky. Voľné minúty, SMS-ky a mobilné dáta dostaneš už za 4 € mesačne, a to bez viazanosti. Všetko vyriešiš pohodlne na webe slobodapremladých.sk alebo v mobilnej apke Moja štvorka. Stačí, aby si mal potvrdenie o štúdiu. Tak na čo ešte čakáš?
There is a slight difference between immigration and emigration. The same person can be both an immigrant and an emigrant. If someone moves from Slovakia to Germany, he is an emigrant because he is leaving his homeland. Remember, emigration is associated with an exit. However, an immigrant is the person who is coming to another state. In this example, to Germany. The immigrant is associated with the preposition into. In conclusion, an immigrant goes to somewhere and an emigrant goes from somewhere. Migration is a term covering both these expressions, with the meaning of moving from one place to another. It describes part of the back and forth pattern. Why do people leave their homeland? The reasons are various and differ from one family to another. Sometimes they just move looking for a change and a new challenge, a desire to live in a different country. They want to explore other cultures and try a new life. However, this reason is not as common as looking for new job opportunities and a need to leave the homeland. Refugees leave the country involuntarily because they are being persecuted for their religious beliefs, political orientation, culture, or there's a war going on in their country. This migration is quite unpleasant, even if the conditions in the other countries are better. The process of leaving is frequently full of obstacles, hiding and running, and even when they're settled, they don't feel safe. A new term, climate refugee, refers to people who had to leave their homes due to natural disasters, climate change, or because their lands become uninhabitable because of pollution. Unfortunately, predictions say that global warming is worsening and the number of climate refugees will rise in the future. These people might also be called environmental migrants. Migration is nowadays a modern phenomenon, and people use this opportunity to have a better life in large cities, to learn new languages and cultures. In the past, most migrants settled in the USA with the vision of a better job and enough finances to provide for their families. They adjusted to the conditions of a new country quite easily, mostly because they had to. The USA is sometimes called a nation of immigrants. However, this does not apply to Native Americans and African Americans who were brought to the New World by force during the period of colonialism. Migration to the USA became even more popular during the California Gold Rush between the years 1848 and 1855, when James W. Marshall found gold in California. This news brought more than 300,000 people from the United States and other countries to find gold and earn money. Indigenous communities were attacked and pushed out of their territories by the gold seekers. Mining caused environmental damage, but transport became better, especially when steamships started sailing on a regular basis. Many Chinese people left China to join the California Gold Rush because floods and drought had destroyed the soil and farms, or they had lost their job. The number of Chinese laborers carried on rising, which provoked protests against them in the American economy. This is why President Chester Arthur decided to establish a restriction with the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882. It prohibited the immigration of Chinese laborers. However, the Chinese were not the only nation migrating to the USA. Immigrants from Ireland were forced to leave the country behind and start a new life as a result of the economic situation caused by the potato famine in the 19th century. Other large groups of immigrants are the Italians, as well as Slavic people who left their countries mostly after World War II. Some of the immigrants started new lives in the USA. Others sent money to their families back home and then returned to them. It was hard to live in a different country and miss their families. There were no phones or internet keeping them in touch. This is the reason why they started to create their own communities and close-knit groups where people from the same homeland with the same culture and religion gathered together. They also wanted to be reminded of their home countries by opening traditional restaurants and shops. Such neighborhoods might be seen in every large city, for example, Chinatown in London, full of Chinese restaurants and decorations. Immigrants were very necessary for development in the United States because they helped to build railways, roads, buildings, and they created modern cities. They contributed to the modern image of the present-day USA and created the idea of a free state where every dream could come true. By bringing their own culture and traditions, they made the USA the colorful, multicultural society it is today. The melting pot is full of hundreds of nations and languages, and it motivates the next generations to be more tolerant and open-minded. A lot of people see immigration as something negative, something to be avoided, and see it as a threat to the native culture. Especially in Slovakia, as a conservative country considers immigration as dangerous for local people as well as for the loss of Slovak identity. However, they forget that almost everyone had someone in their family in the past who was an immigrant. On the contrary, immigration can enrich us in many ways. It all depends on our attitude and mentality. Dear listeners, we have concluded the reasons for immigration and how it influences the culture and life of others. If you want to know more about immigration, listen to us a little longer. The Statue of Liberty in New York was a beacon of light and hope to arriving immigrants. Traveling to the country of freedom, they were feeling exhausted after the long days spent on boats in poor conditions, and when they saw the statue for the first time, they felt elated. Their hopes were up, and the American dream was within their reach. Despite the delight and joy they felt from getting close to New York, they still had to go through Ellis Island. The federal immigration station decided whether they would be allowed into the country or not. During the period from 1892 to 1954, immigrants were forced to wait in long queues for the medical and legal inspections. They were checked for infectious illnesses, criminal records, and their ability to work. Some were able to pass without problems. Others were delayed for days. If you want to get more familiar with this issue, we recommend you read the book Brooklyn and see the movie of the same name. The book tells the story of a young Irish girl who immigrates to the United States a few years after World War II. Dear listeners, thank you very much for listening. Be open-minded. Don't judge immigrants just because of their race, religion, or culture. Learn from them, and they will learn from you. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and write a comment on YouTube. Stay tuned.